got your attention. Right, so this is the Introverted Lead talk, and I wanted to start by asking you a question, or rather, I will ask you to imagine a great leader. And when you imagine a great leader, you're probably thinking plus 20 to charisma, is great with meetings, not afraid of public speaking, your typical extrovert. So I have gathered you here today, or specifically these four lovely people, to prove to you that it's not a necessary prerequisite to being a good lead to be an extrovert. You can also be very introverted. So I've got 4 introverts in here. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, I'm Rob McLachlan. I'm lead designer at The Chinese Room. I've worked in the industry about 22 years now, and I've been a lead for about 15 of those, but this is my first proper lead design position.
I'm Tsang. I'm from Leamington Sumo. Oh my God, I'm so scared that I can't even... I forget who I am and where I'm from. I'm the QA lead, and yeah, as you can tell, I absolutely hate public speaking, and yeah, pass it on.
You're doing great. Hi, I'm Terry Goodwin. I'm the studio director of Lab 42. I've been the studio director for about 4 months, but before then I was the technical director for many years, so I have been in a leadership position for quite a while. Also terrified right now, but I think we're going to get through it together.
Hi everybody, my name's Karen Standard. I'm the studio engagement manager for Nottingham. Shout out to Nottingham, I can see lots of people here today. I think they're very, very surprised that I'm sat here saying that I'm an introvert, because nobody has ever believed that. We'll talk about it a bit more, but I put a great game face on. I'm terrified as well.
All right, thank you. Yeah, hold on to that microphone. There will be more questions to you. And my name is Aggie. I'm with the L&D team. You might have met me, but if you haven't, don't worry about it. I'm only here to make these people shine, so I'm not super important. But I have a question to all of you in the room. Any introverts in the room? No. Great. Awesome. You're in the right place. Fantastic. I was hoping that would happen. Right. So can anybody tell me what introverts are good at? Like, do you know if we have any strengths? And I know that I'm asking a room full of introverts a question, and you're like, what the hell is the door? The door's been locked, you can't leave. And imagine how stressful this is for these 4 people, because I will be asking them more questions than one. So, anybody, any strengths of introverts? Focus, very good. Yeah, going to sleep at a sensible time. Empathy, 100%. Listening, we're very good at listening. Yes, listening comprehension, definitely a strength. Anybody else? Hiding. One of you definitely looks like they want to hide. Okay, thank you for sharing that. So, would anybody like to share how they are using their introverted strengths in their job of leading people?
Yeah, so like I said, this is scaring the life out of me. And so I don't particularly like to be in the spotlight. So this, yeah, is definitely scaring me. But it also, when I'm in my team, I don't want to be the spotlight either. So I want to make sure that my seniors, my other leads, my juniors even, all have a voice and have a platform, basically. So yes, I'm the designated person to talk when in other other disciplines meetings and high-level meetings, but I still want my team to be able to voice and have an opinion, and have that opinion voiced not just to me, but to the whole studio or development team and whatnot. So it's basically allowing myself not to think, oh, I have to be that person to be to be the spotlight every single time. It's allowing other people to step in that role. And the beauty of that is that it gives them the opportunity to learn their future role as well. So, if they're a senior, allowing them to go into sign-off meetings, for example, A, it's a good training for them. B, it shows the whole studio that everything doesn't have to go through me. And 3, it just, again, allows training and better opportunities. So, yeah, I think that for me is not hating the spotlight, sometimes taking the spotlight, but giving the spotlight is a good thing for me. So, yeah.
Thank you. A wise person once told me that who is the most important person in an orchestra and do they make any sound? No, they don't make any sound. And I think that is the sort of leadership that introverts actually can provide. You look like you want to say something.
Me? I don't, no. I think Susie captured it very well there. It's very similar for me. But in the position of being a studio director, that like initially I think taking that sort of leadership role like Susie, where you step back and you can let other people take the lead in meetings where I know that I don't have to be the one that's saying everything if I've got the right team for it. And initially I think that scared some people once I took over the role. They're like, you didn't say very much in that meeting. Was it a problem though? Well, no. Well, then that's how I'm just going to keep doing it that way, because that's the way I found it to work for me. I don't need to push myself in those particular situations. We'll talk a bit later about how you do have to push yourself in some, but situations like that, I think that's a good way for me to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I love the empathy point, the fact that this sort of imagination that the extroverts are great big lumbering fools who crush everyone in their path. If there are any extroverts in the audience, we definitely don't think that of you. The point I wanted to make is that it may take you longer to become a good lead if you are an introvert. So for me, it took quite a long time. The benefit of that is that you may build up a lot of expertise and knowledge. And again, not implying that extroverts don't have this knowledge, but you can build up a lot of confidence in yourself where you can think, oh, well, I know how to do this because I've done it many times before. So you may end up being much more confident because of that. Yeah.
The thing is that you sometimes have to force yourself to practice some of these things, right? You can't just keep avoiding, I don't know, doing talks and public speaking.
Right. I mean, you do, like in a leadership position, there are going to be situations, like I was saying before, where you do need to push yourselves into doing things, leading those meetings, giving talks, doing public speaking, making those phone calls. I mean, you might find it nerve-wracking beforehand, but you do have to, in a leadership position, put yourselves in those positions, and it will get easier. But yeah, you can get there.
Absolutely. I'll just tell people not to call you and send you an email instead. Thank you so much for these comments. Right, so another thing that I've noticed about a lot of introverts or people who are introverted and I've spoken to is that they often feel like they need to pretend to be more extroverted than they are when doing their jobs because they feel that this is necessary, like only an extroverted type can do that job. Do you have any experience of that? Like, how do you feel about it?
I knew that's coming my way, isn't it? I could say, if you'd have asked me that question 6 or 7 weeks ago when we started talking about this process, I would have said, well, absolutely. I've been doing it for the last 25 years. I just put on my armour in the morning, I put on my makeup, and I go out and I pretend to be someone I'm not. I gave birth twice in full makeup. Says it all.
Definitely applause for that.
But it's been really, really interesting talking to everybody, doing the research, looking at the talks. And I've realised that I have been masking for the last 20, 25 years. And actually, I probably don't really need to do that. I need to bring my authentic self to work a little bit more because I get home and I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm spent because I've used all this energy jazz handsing my way around the studio all day. So I've written this down because I just love this. I may actually get this tattooed on my arm. Introversion is not something to be fixed, but to be embraced. I thought that was really, really important. So I'm going to tell myself that a lot more.
Okay.
It's interesting. Over the past couple of days here at SDC, talking to people about this panel, I've had so many conversations with people who I thought were full-on extroverts, who then say to me, no, I'm an introvert, like I'm wiped out after doing all that stuff. And I never would have suspected. So I think there are many, many people out there that do that.
Mm. And yeah, Susie, you did have a good comment about that, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I don't know if it's just me, but sometimes the idea of being an extrovert is talking sort of, what's the word, emphatically about something, or, you know, with great sort of emotion as such. And all introverts have that ability if you talk about the right thing, if you talk about something that you're passionate about. And the thing is that we're all in the games industry, and I'm pretty sure majority of us have passion for the games and making games. And so when you're working, when you're in those meetings and talking about whichever discipline you're in, whether it's arts, QA, you have that passion. And so you can almost automatically be sure that when it comes to having to talk about those, it's going to be easy for you because you have a passion for it, you love it. And we can always talk about things that we love with ease, right? So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, but one thing about being introverted is that how you gain and how you expend energy. So we gain our energy from being alone and we expend it while being sociable. So yeah, ask me about board games and I will talk to you about enthusiastically about them for like 3 hours straight without stopping for drinks. But then I will probably need to lie down. So that's what being an introvert actually is. And then I forgot what my next question was going to be. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, I've got a comment. So I went on a stag weekend, which was a canyoneering expedition. So I don't know if anyone's ever done this before. So walking down a Welsh river and jumping into huge pools. Now, where I'm going with this is that sometimes what can feel really scary, and I'm talking in a very broad sense, right from high-level stuff like providing a vision for a team, or imposing decisions that you think are necessary for the project. These are big things, but stuff I struggle with as well is just making a phone call, like actually just calling someone. I find that really terrifying. And that feeling of being stood on the edge and thinking, wow, this is going to be really terrible, jumping off here. And when you do jump off, it is really terrifying. There's a wonderful Dutch documentary about a diving board, which I all recommend you watch. It's only about 20 minutes long, with all these people who've never done diving before, trying to dive off a 10-meter diving board. And it's absolutely terrifying because it feels like you're jumping into a pit. But, you know, a phone call isn't as bad as that. You can do it. All you need to do is just drop a text message to someone saying, can I talk to you for a bit? It's something good, so they're not alarmed. That's a really good point for nervous employees. And then you can start off from there. And these people are your colleagues, your workmates, and they want to talk to you. They want to get good feedback from you. So it can be alarming at first, but when you make that jump into it, you may find that the anticipation was much worse than the reality of the situation.
Yeah, if you ever send me a request to meet in 3 days for 2 hours and don't tell me why, I will be terrified. Please tell me if it's good or bad so I know how to prepare. Right, Karen, so you mentioned about deciding to bring your actual self to work and not pretending to be an extrovert. So how do we actually make it like more introvert friendly at work so that people don't think, oh, you're being weird today?
Well, I mean, this is a good start, isn't it? We've got 175 people here and we're being recorded, so everybody in Sumo now knows about me. I can't hide anymore.
This is why we're all here.
I think we've just got to start being more honest with each other generally. I think we talked a lot about it in the neurodiverse. Is Hannah in here? That talk that she did yesterday, but that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Just sliding down a seat now. Yeah, maybe we just need to start being more honest with each other and talking to our colleagues about how we feel and what we feel comfortable with, and not feel like we've got to put faces on for things. So that, I think, is what I want to do going forward in the studio, make sure that everybody can start bringing their authentic selves to work and not feel they've got to put their face on.
That's an excellent resolution. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to other things that are uncomfortable. So I find it personally, as a big introvert, that going into a big crowd of people and trying to talk them up is super stressful. And I don't think a lot of introverts actually like networking, although you're all here, so maybe I'm wrong. Any tips? I think I wanted to ask Rob about tips about going into a big crowd and being sociable.
I personally find this not so bad, which may be a bit strange to you, but when I went into commune last night, it was almost like there was a repulsor array just like forcing me out of the room. It was so loud, so noisy, absolutely unbearable almost. I've eventually battled my way upstairs and found the video games museum, and there was no one there, and that was way nicer. And then I found some friends, and I was like, oh, I know these people, and other people from the Chinese room, and we played games together, and that was great. Now, when you go to an event, a great tip is obviously just to have someone with you. They don't have to be an extrovert, but if they're someone that you know and trust and like, maybe if they can pick up on signals from you that you're feeling uncomfortable, and or you can just say them, like, I hate this place, let's go somewhere else. You can go with them, and that you can spread the mental load of the situation over them, and they can also provide introductions to people. When I went to GDC with Laura, the associate art director at TCR, who's sitting over here, we went together. We didn't know many people, but we did eventually start talking to people we knew in common, and that was a really great introduction as well. So eventually I started to pick up people I knew and people I recognized from day to day, and that led to really great conversations with people.
And always know where the door is.
I think for me as well is back to that sort of diving board analogy. I also am petrified of crowds and going into crowded spaces. But the thing for me is that I try not let that fear stop me, and because you never know what's on the other end until you try it, right? So if it was that diving board, I could have just done a 180 and just walked straight back to my hotel room yesterday rather than going to commune. But, I went in with a friend, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be. You can talk to random people, meet more friends, meet people that you've spoken to once or twice, and realize, actually, you can do this. I didn't die, not this time. And, it's going to happen every single time probably. So next year, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but not allow that fear to stop me. And it could be any social situation, whether it's a big group, a small group, but just at least giving it a go, because, I think everything in life, right? If you don't try it, you don't know. Well, some things, because some things will kill you. But yeah, try something, because you never know if you'll make it on the other end. So yeah, that's me.
I have a couple of things on this. I think there are social situations, networking sort of situations. There are different. These come in different flavors, different types of things. There are some things where it's not a big deal for you to go try your best and then bow out of them. You're not going to be committed to the whole event. So you can, if you are trying to build up a tolerance for things because it doesn't come naturally at all, you can be strategic about what sorts of events you go to like this, so that you can quite comfortably just leave. Like commune last night, there was no obligation to stay for any period of time. So I think things like that are the perfect opportunity, even though that is the loudest thing. It wasn't very pleasant. But then secondly, I think as a society, we're more open to talk about these sorts of things. I mean, we're here talking about it right now. So that I think a lot more people now are understanding that you can just say to people, right, it's been lovely seeing you, but I'm just wiped out. I'm going to go. And no one's going to be like, oh, that's a bit weird. They'll be like, oh, that's fair enough. So I think things are getting easier for people that find it hard to do these sorts of things.
Got one more comment that I just remembered about. It's especially for me, I like this late on in life, that conversation or socialization isn't just about talking, because you have to listen at the end of the day, right? So if you're like me, you prefer to listen, you can just sit there in the conversation, be present, and listen to every single person's comments and ideas. You may eventually come up with your own comment, and sometimes it's a wise little nugget that they can walk away with and be like, oh, wow, Susie's a wise one. Rarely happens, but yeah, don't feel as if, oh, I'm going to have this whole night of socialization, of networking, where I have to constantly be talking, find something to say. Whereas actually, you could just go there thinking, I'm going to listen. You can practice your listening skills, is a valuable asset, and just think, yeah, I'm going to try and listen into as many conversations. And if you don't make a comment, if you don't talk to many people, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you still practiced listening, you were present, and that's the most important thing, really.
Thank you so much for that. I'll try to do that more. And also, I usually think of any comments like 2 days later, so I'll send you an email. Right. Terry, I had a specific question for you, because I know you probably deal with recruiting a lot of people, which involves, by necessity, having conversations with them. So I imagine, first of all, that this is draining if you do it for a whole day. Second of all, it might be terrifying if you're recruiting a lot of introverts and they come to your interviews and they're like, I would like a job, please, but I don't know what else to say. So how do you make that situation more comfortable for yourself? How do you make that conversation more comfortable for these people?
Right, it's a good question, because, yeah, it does wipe you out doing it all day, but when I started to be involved in hiring people, I thought back to the early stages of my career, at the very beginning, and the interviews that I went through, where it would be like you'd have to travel all day to get somewhere, or take a plane ride and stay over, and it was like a huge ordeal, because it was before Teams and all the video calls and things.
What a blessing, Teams.
So you'd be, the people, well, me, you know, you'd be stressing about it the whole way there. You'd get there, and then the interview would be like a series of technical questions, because I was a programmer, and from an awkward person that's reading off a checklist or whatever, or they simply forget you're coming and then just wing it. And so I think back to that sort of thing. I think, how can we improve on that process? So for me, the way I interview people is that I try and make it as stress-free as possible. I don't believe that putting someone on the spot with a difficult technical question, I don't think that's the right venue for it, because I think it's not conducive to being able to gather your thoughts that well. So I start off in every interview I do, for whatever it's for, is to say, what's the first game you ever played? And then that's an icebreaker. They usually have to think about it for a while, and then it's related to some sort of nostalgic feeling they have, and then they can start talking about that. And then you move on to, okay, how did that take you to, when did you start making games related to that? And then they're talking about that sort of thing. And then you can just guide them through it. It's just like more of a conversation, and that's like, now tell me about this. Now tell me. It's more like, oh, how did that, blah, 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 blah. And I find that people, they find that very disarming, and then they'll say like, oh, that was an excellent interview. I feel so relaxed talking about it. So I think, and you get to get a good sense of them. They get a good sense of you, because it's been a proper conversation, and that's the way I do it.
Sounds like a dream. Sounds like a dream to me. So, since we are at giving some tips to managers who might have introverts on their team, do we have any tips for those people? I know most of you in the room are introverts, so we probably don't have that many extroverts there, but maybe they're watching, or maybe they will be watching later. So, any tips? How do we manage a group of introverts so that they're happy?
I think I'm pretty lucky, because I'm an introvert, and I think a good majority of my team are also introverts. So we kind of have this sort of natural understanding anyway of how we are. And it's back to that kind of acceptance of knowing that we are introverts. So we are comfortable in saying, oh, today my mental health isn't that great, and the team will understand. Or, you know, you can pull them aside and say, oh, I just need 5 minutes alone just to gather my thoughts, my feelings or whatnot, and know that they won't be judged. So I think that's important. And so if you are an extroverted lead, or an introverted lead actually, just make sure that you sort of cultivate that environment of acceptance. That's the biggest thing for me. And secondly, I think recognition. I think Rob might have a point on this as well, is some individuals may be so introverted that they don't want to show their work, or they don't want to say, I've done this or I've done that. But it's you as a lead to recognize that they might be that type of individual, and you can just say to them, I've seen your work, it's great, whatever it may be, and just give them a nice word or two, and just say, I see you. That's all we want at the end of the day, right? We want to be seen. And it's just making sure that each and every individual in your team is seen in the way they want to be seen as well. So we're all individuals. We all react differently. We all are different at the end of the day. So what might work for one introverted individual may be completely different to another, and you just got to recognize what they need individually.
Thank you.
Expanding on that a bit. So at the Chinese room, we've got what I hope is quite an open culture of showing work and informing the whole team about what we've been working on. So we very regularly gather sections of the team or the whole team and show work off to people. So for introverts on my direct team, and I know there are a few of them, I think initially that thing about saying, I'd like you to show your work, would you like to share it with me, this is what I'd hope you can show. I always offer to help by introducing or providing a context to the rest of the team, or being maybe the first point for any critical points that might come in. So I'll say something like, thank you for sharing your work. Does anyone have any comments for the design team or for us? And so that any criticism that does come from other members on the team doesn't go directly to that person, but instead goes through me, so they don't feel like they're being, publicly criticised. It's always difficult, but those are some practical things you can do to help people who need to show their work.
I think for me, I feel like I'm responsible for everybody in our studio. That's a lot of people, but I try and really hone my emotional intelligence skills, because I know that there are some people that I can just breeze onto the studio floor and kind of talk to, and there are other people that for them that's their absolute worst nightmare. They do not want to talk to me face to face, but they will happily engage in a conversation over Teams or email, and we'll get to the same resolution. But it's just really tapping in and knowing where people are comfortable, and never forcing people to kind of out of their comfort zone when it's not needed. I've seen that before in meetings where you clearly got somebody that's introverted and not comfortable, and they've been put in a position where it's like, oh, you need to talk and you need to, and it's not good. So I think it's just having that real emotional intelligence and tapping into that.
I would say if you're managing introverted people, one thing that you should really be making sure that you're doing is evangelizing for them, because they often can't do it. They just find it difficult to do it for themselves. I've recently had a situation where, because Sumo has this culture of collaboration between the studios, and that we often lend people out to different projects in different studios, that sometimes the studio, they have to validate that they have the right skills for what they need. And I had someone that was very shy, very quiet, and he just wasn't able to sell himself. So the studio were like, oh, we're not sure about this. And I'd say, no, he is excellent. That's why I hired him. That's why he's in that position. He's truly great. He can do this. He's done this for us and that and that and that. But he just wasn't able to convey that, even though he had all those skills.
I'm a big fan of that story. Thank you for sharing. Right. So I think we still have time for questions. Great. Oh, already. Whoa. I had one more thing to say. Because we have a room full of introverts, if any of you think like you don't want to ask a question in front of around 200 people, then find us later, send us an email, send us a message on Teams, or any other ways. And also, if you want to learn more about the topic, then if you go back to this event on Dojo, there's a link to a full playlist that I put together with materials that you might want to read, watch, or listen to, because I tried to cater for everybody's needs. And there was a question there. Yeah. Oh, you will need a microphone.
Thank you. Yeah, you can tell I'm the extrovert in the room probably. I like shoot my hand up. I'm like, I gotta be first. Yeah, and honestly, very, very interesting panel. And thank you so much. I've taken pages of notes. That's because I'm an extrovert and I don't understand where you're coming from all the time. So it's very helpful. And I was gonna ask a question. I'm a recruiter, specifically about recruiting. So thank you for that answer. I kind of scratched that one off and then realized I had a question beyond that, which is about not just like inclusivity in the interview pipeline itself and the questions you're asking, but how can you appeal to an individual and kind of sell the culture of the studio and make clear, that they'll be in a safe space when they get in there? Like, what values should I be speaking to when I'm speaking to individuals that are more introverted?
Oh, in a recruitment situation like you are trying to, right? Okay. When in our sort of. So you mean before an interview sort of situation? Or?
Well, usually in a call with a candidate, I tailor what I'm going to tell them about the studio to who I'm speaking to, because obviously that's what's gonna matter to that individual the most, right? So designers might need a different, so I guess that's my question is like, is there something about a studio that maybe all of you would look for if you're going out to go work somewhere? Like, what are you looking for as a candidate in the studio that makes you feel safe as an introvert, I suppose?
That's an interesting question. I think the best way to do that, personally, I think that would be to find some actual real factual story or something to do with the studio that deals with this, that you can, so it doesn't just sound like it's like, oh yeah, we're very open, we're very inclusive. It's lovely, trust me. Yeah. So that's what I would say, but that might not be viable, I don't know, based on your situation, but that would be the best case.
If there's one thing I'd ever say to anyone who's going for an interview, usually, and as Terry said, game studios are busy places, and sometimes people forget that there's even an interviewee turning up. It takes a lot of time to interview people. We look at a lot of CVs. Usually by the time you're going to be called for an interview, we want to give you the job. That is the biggest message I'd give to any student or anyone for any stage really who is going for an interview, that we would like to hire you. We just want to find out more about who you are, because I think normally your experience will speak for itself, and we wouldn't be talking to you if you didn't match the profile of the position. So to go into that, like Terry was saying, not going to the interview like expecting that we're trying to trip you up, or you're gonna try and catch you out, but instead just try and find out how you solve problems, how you think about things, and how nice you would be to work with. So giving people plenty of time to answer questions and things. So I'd say to them, it's going to be a low-pressure interview or something like that if they have concerns. Yeah.
One of the things that I do say in my interviews when I'm interviewing juniors or whoever maybe for QA, towards the end, I would always state that we have the Prism network within Sumo, because at the end of the day, if we have something like Prism, we are trying to cultivate that environment where everyone is accepted, and that obviously, well, not obviously, but for me, it's obvious that if everything under the sun is accounted for and taken into consideration, so is introversion and extroversion as well. So that for me is the biggest thing that I use.
Thank you. I don't want to cheat. Are you sure? Okay, let's go ahead.
Right, I'll make mine fast. So as an introvert, and I'm in a lot of meetings, my coworkers are great, but if I'm in a lot of meetings, I do find that quite draining. What kind of methods do you have for recharging your battery in a day that has a ton of meetings?
No idea. Yeah, sorry. Does anyone else have an answer?
I can tell you what I do. I'm not sure whether it will help or not, but Tuesdays and Thursdays for me are my really busy days in the studio. We pretty much have meetings all day. I get home, I've got a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old jumping around. So it's full on, but I always try and get, even if it's just half an hour, sometimes I've gone and locked myself in the bathroom, if I'm honest, just to get that. I take a book, I just have to download, because my batteries are flat by that time. So I do try and get that time to myself at the end of the day. always do that during the day because it's meeting heavy. But splitting up the days as well that I do in the studio. So we've got a really good thing going in Nottingham where we do our hybrid working. So we kind of do Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays from home, Tuesdays and Thursdays in the studio. So again, that works really well in terms of recharging the batteries. I don't know whether that answers your question and helps. Oh, there we go. Terry's got an actual answer now, look.
No, I don't mean that yours wasn't an actual answer.
I was just going to say it's again that word very individual. There's some people who can go for a walk for 15 minutes and it will clear their mind enough to sort of energize them. I'm not going to lie, sometimes have a nap. And even when I was in an office, for example, I would go away and find a corner and nap. But I'm a sleepy one. But yeah, it's literally find your own. Just trial and error at the end of the day. Play a different game, talk to someone else and offload, listen to music. It's literally just try as much as you can, and I think eventually you'll find something that hits the spot, or a couple of things that hits the spot, hopefully, because we should never try and sort of, what's the word? Rely on one thing, I suppose. So, what's your real answer?
A real answer would be to talk to your manager about it and get support with it. Because I can only talk about our studio. We have core hours, and we try not to do any meetings outside those core hours. We try not to do any meetings inside the 2-hour lunch break window, which only leaves a small amount of time in the day for meetings. So the idea being that people aren't overburdened with meetings all day. So if this is something that you do struggle with, I would suggest talking to people who can enact change there for you, so you don't have to find the little tips to make it bearable, you know.
That's a real answer.
This talk is called the Introverted Lead. So being a lead gives you certain powers which you can use to advantage yourself and your team. You are in control of the meeting scheduling, so you can say, let's have a break now. You can say, the other meeting went on really long. Can we have a 10-minute break before we start the new one? So that can break up that huge, horrific thing which you see in Outlook of that blue that extends through the whole morning. You could just say to everyone, your co-leads, just say, listen, let's take a 5-minute break to go and get a cup of coffee and walk around a bit, and then we'll go and do the next meeting. Use your lead powers, yeah.
Thank you. Hi. I'm a principal, and I guess one of my yearly tasks or goals is to kind of, I guess, boost morale and kind of create a positive workplace. I mean, myself, I'm guilty of it too, but quite a lot of introverted people, I guess, use kind of self-deprecation, that kind of imposter syndrome type thing. Do you feel that's a part of letting people be themselves, or is that something you should call out and discourage, or what are your thoughts on that?
I try to avoid it personally, but I don't manage to avoid it. So I'm honest to a fault about how I'm feeling sometimes, and how I feel about the work I'm presenting, which I shouldn't do. And I think as a principal as well, which I think is an amazing innovation in job progression. I think that your job as a principal kind of is to set a standard of excellence in work that leads the whole team forward. And I just present your work without being self-deprecating and just say, there you go. Because that's your special power that you can bring to the table, even if you don't do the lead stuff.
Just yourself, I guess you said setting an example, but should you try and I guess that it's more of a psychological thing that maybe people need to figure out themselves, but should you take people aside and be try not to do that? In terms of I worry sometimes that some people who are self-deprecating that morale might bring down others, if you know what I mean. It's kind of, I don't know, I just wonder if it's sort of
I would say first, maybe verify that it is an issue, I suppose, because it might not be. Like if everybody understands that's just that person, that's just what they do, then maybe that's the best outcome for it, because then you're not asking someone to change, because it is hard to overcome that, absolutely. So I would say first verify that it is a problem. And if it is a problem, I guess like Rob's saying, you might, have to deal with it head on.
Do you think there's some kind of better way we could do things like networking for introverts than just, here's a big loud room full of strangers, go make friends?
There has to be.
I was thinking the exact same thing this morning, because I was thinking back to the commune where we're just literally launched into this huge entire room. And the problem is that generally we stick to the people that we know. You're in little herds of groups, and then you try and walk your way through it, and make an off comment that seems funny and lands flat, and you're back to square one. So it's a very good question, and I think that's is a very big question that would probably take a year for them to do for next year, hopefully. But board games.
The loud concrete room full of music and loud talking is my least favourite aspect of the games industry. It's developed for the last 20 years. It's been like that. So I would love it if there were changes made. I would like it if there were places which were quieter, and if the venues had more sound absorption so it didn't echo so much. And I would like it if there were events set up at SDC where disciplines could meet. So if I could meet a load of other level designers or designers in general. We have some people who meet on Teams, all lead designers from around Sumo. But to translate that into real world, that would be great, because I know some of those people, but I just actually can't remember them at sight, because people walk up to me and say, "Oh, hi, who are you? Oh yeah, that person I've been talking to for 2 years on Teams. It's just that you're 12 feet taller than I thought you'd be."
Rob, I think that was an excellent suggestion. And I'd say, have a bunch of quiet rooms without loud music, and tell people what the topics in these rooms will be in advance. Because if you've got a group of introverts, they do like to think about the stuff that they want to say and not just do it in the moment. So if you tell them, hey, in room 12, we will be talking about this thing, and then in room 3.5, we'll be talking about that thing, I think that will work. Thank you.
Sorry. Oh, can I? Or? I mean, he'd like to say. Oh, sorry. Okay, so my question is, I feel like the more charismatic people are more likely to get noticed for a promotion or have mates in other studios, so they would get a lead role there. So my question is how do you show that you can do the lead stuff and become a lead as a more quiet type?
I don't really know how you can do it, but you should be getting supported by your managers. Like I said, they need to be your evangelists in that case. They need to be pushing things forward for you. And if that's not happening, that's tricky to deal with, isn't it? But part of the values of Sumo should cover that should be happening. That's not a very helpful answer, but I think that there should be accountability there for the people that are filling those positions, I think.
I would say also that being charismatic or having the ability to say what is needed is not. What am I trying to say? Erase that. What I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, it's as long as you get the right information across to who needs it is the most important thing. How you do that is up to you, and whether that is via the shortest sentence ever, but very concise and good language, and it translates perfectly to the individuals who need it. That's the most important thing. You don't have to be flamboyant. You don't have to know the entire dictionary and the thesaurus. I hella don't. you just need to be able to communicate at the end of the day. And whether that's via email, Teams, verbally, just find what's good for you and make sure you do communicate. The person who communicates the best, and I don't mean the loudest, because generally speaking, the person the loudest isn't always the one that you want to hear. But as long as it's the correct information and constant correct information, then that's the most important bit. And again, it's making sure that your manager is recognizing what you're doing. That's the way you'll get higher and higher, I think. Because at the end of the day, if you don't get recognized because they're not looking, then that's on them and not you.
Also say with the audience member who talked about the principal, you don't have to be a lead. You shouldn't feel that that's something you have to do. That's a bit of a weird answer, so I apologise for it. I don't mean that in a nasty way, but I think you should definitely feel like you want to develop in that way, and yeah, your manager should be helping you to do that. And it may be just like I said right at the beginning, it may take you a little bit longer, and it may take a lot of building up of your expertise until you're always confident in what you're saying, and you'll notice that people will listen to you when you have the correct information. Yeah.
I just want to quickly touch on the fact that I don't think you need to be an extrovert to be charismatic. I think you all look really charismatic to me. I think we've just got a bunch of charismatic people. We're just quietly charismatic. Would you agree, Terry?
I think that's going to be it for today, because it's 12:47 and we're out of time, right? So if anybody has any more questions, we'll be outside and in the intermingling area on the first floor, probably, or find us in the quiet room and then smile and walk away.